Jacob. I'm a senior. I've studied abroad in Amman, Jordan, 2 times. First in 2014 through our MSU Study Abroad program with Dr. Issa. Somebody might know him. And then I went the next summer also for about another 2.5, 3 months to Qasid Arabic Institute, which is it's probably the best Arabic language institute you can go to in the Middle East. And I was privileged. I got some money from the Gilman Scholarship and was able to attend for the summer. So what I want to touch on over the next couple minutes is pretty much the differences between going on a studying abroad with a group of people where you visit every tourist site that you can in a culture, and then going on your own and kind of seeing what happens. Because I think there's a wide difference between the two, and I think really you get something a lot different out of both of them. These are all pictures from my first trip. Jordan is a pretty small country, but with a very long history. For those of you who don't know, it's right next to Israel, north of Saudi Arabia, south of Syria. So now that we're situated, there's a massive amount of historical, cultural sites that are there. You have Petra, you have an amphitheater there that's right in the middle of the city of Amman. You have the Temple of Hercules, as it's known. I got a picture with a camel, which is a prerequisite if you go to the Middle East. This is a picture of a Bedouin camp, so it's in Wadi Rum. They're massive deserts and with huge rock mountains, and so the Bedouins have lived there for thousands of years. And so you go for a night and you take a dune buggy out as the sun is setting, so you get to watch this gorgeous sunset. They make you tea, they serve you food that they use a method where they cook it in the ground. Some of you are nodding, apparently you've heard of it. It's delicious if you ever have a chance. And then you can stay up and watch thousands of stars. I mean, there's no artificial light there, so it's absolutely gorgeous. That is kind of the being a tourist part of a study abroad program, and it kind of swept me up. We didn't really have any free time. It was go to class 5 hours a day, then go home, study for as long as you can before your mind explodes, then fall asleep, and then we take a trip somewhere. Every weekend for about 8 weekends, I'm gonna say, we managed to visit a tourist site, which was fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was incredible seeing all these places that have been in the Indiana Jones movies, and even seeing the history that resides in this tiny country. It takes 4 hours to get from any point of the country, from any end, and so we managed to see the breadth of Jordan, but not really the city life, I guess, the daily life of how people felt, when they were just living there, when they were growing up there. And so I decided to go back, primarily because one, I was still pretty bad at Arabic and I needed more practice. And two, I think I failed my first time there in what I think should be, I guess, the primary goal of studying abroad is making connections. It's engaging with a culture. It's making friends, meeting new people. It's experiencing something that you couldn't have because somebody gives you that experience. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a difficult concept. But I didn't grow up there, and I can't. Even if I lived there for 20 years, I still won't really have grown up there as a native in Jordan. So the only way to understand what that can be felt like is to meet people who grew up there and talk with them and just listen, and that's it. And so I think that there's two kind of different sorts of culture. But first I'm going to talk about my title, Critical Engagement. When we meet somebody, I think if we even, talk to them, I mean, we're speaking in a different language and we're bad at it. So whenever you meet somebody, it's so awkward that you're stumbling around. You can only pick up random words. Their English might be better, but then you feel bad that you're not practicing the native language. It's difficult to go up and try and make friends because you're in this foreign land that you don't really know what's happening really at all. So that in the first place is difficult. And I think that's actually the key part of this concept of critical engagement. It's asking these questions. It's meeting the people who can answer the questions about the culture. Because yeah, there's a history there, but the history of Jordan may not exactly reflect where that society is at the moment. I think same as for the United States, right? So my second time, I made a concerted effort to work on this issue. It took me a while, I think about another month then, before a friend and I went out to a small art museum. It's called Dar Afunin. It's a modern art museum, and it's built on the side of a mountain. And they have these gorgeous gardens. They have a small cafe where you can order tea. So we kind of sat on the steps there, which is like the hipster part of Amman. All the 21-year-olds who are rebelling from their families or religion go there to hang out. We went there and we finally met these two guys who approached us. I mean, when you're an American in the Middle East, people tend to wonder kind of what you're doing there, honestly, even before Donald Trump was a thing. And so they asked us for ice randomly. We were drinking too, and why they thought that was a thing. But we started talking and we started exchanging for probably until like 2 or 3 a.m. We were just kind of sitting there hanging out, talking about how they grew up. They told me about the first time that they were both Muslims, and they were telling me about the first time that they had to buy alcohol because they wanted to try it. So they got on a bus, went to the other side of the city, which is like a half-hour bus ride probably, and found a Christian alcohol shop because Muslims aren't allowed to sell alcohol there. And they were freaking out. They were so nervous that somebody would see them and tell their parents. They hid it in this backpack for like 2 weeks. And hearing that kind of story, something I think is incredibly different than the culture that at least I grew up in. I kind of, acknowledging that perspective, learning that not everything, I guess, is the same. That's a pretty simple way to put it. We need to focus on the current times. We need to force ourselves to interact with the nationals, the foreign citizens that actually live there. Because without that, when we just go visit the big places, the famous places that you've all heard about, what more do you gain than a picture on your Facebook wall? I mean, in a lot of instances, I probably have 1,000 pictures that I've looked at twice and never looked at again. So I guess to wrap up, a little bit of advice for the students. One, we need to start taking these initiatives. I have a ton of friends who went to Europe and spent 2 weeks getting wasted in European clubs, which, is cool. But I don't know how much we're supposed to be learning abroad, and I think we get so much more out of that, rather than being a global citizen, right? Being able to navigate the culture and, have the bare minimums to get around. We actually sort of start to understand. We start to have this exchange that's necessary in order to combat this sort of kind of xenophobia. So we have to take the initiative, we have to explore, we have to put ourselves out there. I mean, that's common advice that everybody says, but every time we go abroad, it's really hard to take that into mind. For the programs, I don't know if any faculty members are here or anything, but the structure does really matter. Because when we don't have time, when we're not able to just explore the city and get out there and take a risk and find ourselves in a situation that we normally wouldn't, we're definitely not going to be able to take these chances. Even forcing the students to interact with people, getting groups of university students to pair up with your university. Letter writing, that sounds like not the coolest thing ever. But doing that in person and having the nationals take you places and take you to the cool hidden spots that you wouldn't have known about is really going to be the best memories that you have. So yeah, foreign language is another massive part of culture that we need to encourage the use of, because when we learn the language, we learn how to listen. We create a sense of trust, of community that, doesn't exist when they just learn your language and you don't even try to learn theirs. I can't emphasize that enough. Learning another person's language is, I think, humbling for them. Especially like Arabic or Chinese or Russian, like those languages that are the biggest pains to learn. So that's pretty much it. Just remember to take the initiative to reach out to your compatriots abroad, to just try new things and to reach for that understanding. Because if we don't question cultures around us, I don't really think we can learn anything about our own. That's it.